So how could this possibly happen? How could someone who had always seen myself as a fundamentally honest person wind up convincing myself that it was all right to not tell the truth to my whole community, to friends and neighbors, and even family that I'd known all my life? How could anyone fall for such an obvious deception? And not just anyone. How could I ever have allowed myself to do this? I've spent many years reflecting on this. I spent years sitting in prison, thinking about the people that I had made promises to that I could not deliver on. I had a cellmate who used to think I was strange because sometimes in the middle of the night or just in a quiet moment, I would go, oh. I would just make an audible groan as I thought about someone that I had lied to, and knowing the hurt and the harm this had caused in their lives. How did I ever wind up in that situation? How did I ever agree to something so devious and hurtful? And after years of doing my best to face this and come to terms with it, there are a few things that I can say at this point. First of all, it didn't happen all at once. It happened slowly, incrementally over a long period of time. My wife at the time and I traveled to Connecticut to be treated by this healer, spiritual healer, as he called himself. And he was very insightful. He was very, as we saw it at the time, very gifted. He had insights that helped my, and healing abilities that helped my wife at the time greatly in ways that no one else had really been able to help her. And he was also very useful to me and very wise about my situation and my life, and both offered direction and insights that I didn't have and were very helpful. And so for a long period of time, this was just very personal. It had nothing to do with anyone else. It was no more anyone else's business than a doctor's appointment or a time with your massage therapist or anyone who, or your psychologist or anyone who you were going to for help in your life. And this wasn't just for a few months, this was over the course of 10 years. And over the course of that time, I came to trust him more and more deeply with more and more aspects of my life. And I didn't really consider that this was anyone else's concern or business because it didn't have anything to do with them. But then, very suddenly, after we had been working with him for about 10 years, a whole bunch of things happened that I can't give all the details of here, but basically he told me, instructed me to start raising money to make a film. And because I had learned to trust him and to, at a certain level, to surrender my sense of what needed to happen to what I saw as a greater sense of wisdom that he had. Now there's the warning sign, which I did not see at the time. But I agreed to this proposition of raising money from friends and neighbors and my community to make a film called Birth of Innocence. Birth of Innocence. It would be a film about the spiritual process that we were working within and that was so important to me and I was finding such value in. And I simply missed the transition from this being something that had nothing to do with anyone else to it becoming something that had a lot to do with other people. I was foolish and I was blind, and I was blinded by a kind of trust and naivete that this was all spiritual. It was all following the deeper truths of life, and it would be supported by greater powers than any of us could understand. And I communicated this to the people I was raising money from. I communicated my trust in this and that they could trust it. And Lou Soterio always told me, don't worry about the money. Everyone will be paid back. I promise you. And I trusted this and I ran with it. And I called and spoke with, invited virtually